Hi there, my name is Anna, and today we're going to be focusing on the hips, mobilizing them and moving in all of the different ways that hips should be able to move. One thing to note about this is as we are working in the hips, we really want to focus on keeping the pelvis steady. So I see it all the time when someone goes to move in their hip, it's like the whole pelvis moves. And we want to work on how do we kind of keep this strength contained in the core, in the glutes, so that we can begin to isolate just this movement in the hip. And if you're not used to doing that, it's going to feel really different probably, but it'll change your life, promise. So let's get started off on your back. If you have blocks and potentially a blanket, go ahead and grab them. And if not, no worries. So we'll start off on your back here. Grab a hold of your block if you have it. If not, you can just be flat on the floor. And we're going to set up in a bridge position. So I'm going to take my block to the lowest setting and just slide it right underneath my sacrum. That's this triangular shaped bone right at the base of your spine. And you want to feel your glutes, your butt, just slightly off the block. And they are still a little bit active. So think about lengthening your tailbone forward, and you've just got some gentle tone in the glutes there. And we'll start off by taking your hands right over these front pelvic points. And then if you just imagine like lightly hugging them together, you're gonna feel kind of this band of muscle in your abdominals start to hug in. Now try and maintain that. We're just going to lift this right knee and set it down. Lift the left knee and down. So keep going with that. And just notice if you are feeling like a lot of wobbling side to side. And to see if you can work to minimize that, so that we're really isolating this movement in the hips. We're keeping the sacrum even on the block there. And you can even help this hip flexion by putting your fingers in your hip creases. And when you lift the leg, it's like you're deepening that hip crease. Now this next time your right knee comes up, hold it there. You can have the right fingers in that hip crease there. And let's just start to internally and externally rotate the hip. So internal rotation is when the foot kind of turns out to the right. External rotation is when the foot is turning it toward the left. And so we're just moving that femur bone up in the hip socket. And trying to keep everything else pretty still. Nice. And then let's set that down. Left leg lifts up. Can deepen that hip crease. And then just internally and externally rotate. You just might notice that when we focus on isolating in the hip, that these movements are going to be a little bit smaller. And so sometimes that's just something we have to kind of like reconcile in our brains, that we're not going to be able to move in these huge ways. But you're probably going to feel it more, and it's definitely going to feel better when we can differentiate between movement in the hip versus movement in the pelvis versus, say, maybe movement in the spine. And then go ahead and set that down. Now, take two fists and place them right over these front pelvic points. Lengthen your tailbone down and then push into your feet. So you want to feel your glutes squeezing here. So you can take your fingers back and give your glutes a little tap. Right? They are going to be the primary muscles working to lift the hips up here. So they've got to be on. So you can put your fists on those front pelvic points to give your glutes something to push up into. And then we're going to lift up off of the block there. Awesome. And then we're just pushing down with the hands a little bit so that we can push up with the glutes. And so you feel it's the work of the back of the hips to lift you up, not just your lower back. You can slide the block off to the side there. And now, if you are good on the glutes pushing up here and don't need that feedback of the hands, let's take your arms, reach them up toward the ceiling, and stretch out the wrists. So left hand can pull the right fingers back. Couple deep breaths there. Just see if you can relax your neck and shoulders a bit. And switch sides. And then go ahead, relax your arms. We're still up in this bridge. We're gonna get really clear about the work of the glutes today. And let's just move a little bit in and out with the thighs. So we're starting to get some of these outer hip muscles woken up, called the gluteus medius. Couple more there. Hope you're feeling that burn. I definitely am. And we'll just come back through center and lower slowly, one vertebra at a time. Oh yeah. Let's grab a hold of your block again there if you've got it. I'm going to take the legs straight up, and then you can take the block between your thighs. So bring your hands behind your head here, cup your skull, take a big inhale, and then exhale, lift up off the shoulder blades. Now look down at your belly, hug it in. So that space between those two frontal hip points, feel like you were just gonna tighten that there and draw it down. Inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up. Look down at that space between the pelvic points, hug it in, and then the side ribs, like kind of pull them together. Keep that, roll the thighs in, roll the thighs out. Roll the thighs in, roll the thighs out. Back through center, inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up. And pull both sides of the abdominal wall together and down. Roll in, roll out, roll in, roll out. Back through center, inhale to lower. Let's add on to that. Exhale, lift up. Roll in, roll out, roll in, roll out, squeeze the block, hug down through the belly, inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up. Now turn an inch to the right, staying up off that right shoulder blade and staying hugged in the belly. Roll in, roll out, roll in, roll out, back through center, inhale, lower. Let's do one more here. Exhale, lift up. Turn an inch to the left, roll in, roll out. We're staying off that left shoulder blade, roll in, and roll out. Come back through center, inhale to release. Whew. Take that block off to the side here. We're gonna roll over your side and then come up into a tabletop. I'm going to use a little padding for my knees with this blanket. And then you can bring your hands right underneath your shoulders, your knees right underneath your hips. And then feel your throat lift up so your neck is long. Now take a hand right to your lower belly. And then kind of draw those front hip points together so you feel this slight upward lift. So what we're trying to avoid here is just letting the lower back arch. And we want to draw the front pelvic points together there to kind of just maintain that. Now bring your right knee up just to about hip height, maybe a little bit lower. And then notice there if you started to sag in your belly. Hug the pelvic points in. And we're just going to do some little tiny pulses, trying to move from that right glute. And so if you need to, you can always bring a hand back to that right glute. Give it a little poke. Right, so we're just sending that messaging from the brain of what we want it to do. And if you feel your hamstring doing most of the work, right, you can always set the leg down there, kind of regroup, and just try it again. Couple more here. And then we're going to hold it up, turn just the thigh out a little bit. Just a little bit, so we're not turning the whole pelvis, just rolling the thigh open. And then pulse right there. Couple more. I know it's a lot. And come on back down. Woo, set that down. Let's bring the left leg up this time. Right, so we're not letting the belly collapse. That's going to send you more into your lower back and less into your glute. So draw it up. And then we'll just start those little pulses. If you need to, take a hand back, tap that left glute. Keep it going, couple more here. And then hold it up, rotate just the thigh out, just a little bit, and then pulse it there. Keep lifting in that lower belly, pushing down through your hands. We're doing it. Last few. All right, set that down. Whew. So we're gonna set up for a downward facing dog here. If you'd like to grab your blocks, you're welcome to have your hands on the blocks. But spread the fingers nice and wide. And then lift up in between the shoulder blades, toes are tucked. We're gonna pike the hip creases up here. So as the hip creases pike up, just let your head relax. We're keeping that feeling of containment in the core, hugging in, lifting up. And then bring your right knee up. You can bend the knee and just do a few circles in that right hip. And once again, just notice the pelvis is staying steady there. Switch directions. And we'll set that down. Left leg lifts, knee is bent, and just little circles. So if you feel anything kind of like grinding or pinching, really feel like you can lift that low belly up and just move a little bit smaller in the hip. In both ways here. And then we'll step that foot down. Let's just start to walk your feet forward towards your hands. And we'll rise all the way up to stand at the front here. All right, feeling a lot in my glutes. Hope you are. So let's bring your arms straight forward and up here. And then feel the tailbone is lengthening down. And then bring your fingers into your hip creases. And we're gonna push back. So we're sitting back into the hips. The knees will bend as the hips go back and the spine stays long. You can bring your hands down either to blocks or to the floor and step your right foot back. Lower the knee and come onto the top of that right foot. And you can take your left hand over to the front right pelvic point here as the right arm lifts up. And then just feel like you can push that right glute forward into that left hand. Both hands come down, blocks or floor, and lift up for downward facing dog. Right foot will step forward. Try to keep your hands flat on whatever you've got them on there. Lower the left knee, come onto the top of the foot. And then the right hand comes over to the front left hip point. The left arm will reach up. And just push forward a little bit with that left glute. Feel the opening of the front of the thigh. Both hands come down, floor or blocks, and step your left foot up next to the right. And then just see there that the hips are sitting back, the hip creases are deepening, and the spine is long, the chest is open. Rise to stand there. Bring your arms forward and up. Keeping the ribs contained there, we're not arching in the back. And then put the fingers in the hip creases, sit straight back, spine is long, chest is open. Hands come down, floor or blocks. Step the left foot back. Lower the knee, but keep the toes tucked this time. And then you can bring the arms up again here. So maybe drag back with that right heel slightly and feel that left glute wrapping down and a little bit pushing forward. Bring both hands down, floor or blocks. Step back, downward facing dog. Left foot will step forward, push into the hands, try to keep them flat. Lower the right knee, but tuck the toes under. Arms lift up. And then drag that left heel back a little bit. And we're wrapping that right glute down, pushing it forward ever so slightly. Bring both hands down, floor or blocks, and we'll step the right foot up here. Okay, so let's step the left foot back again. We'll lower the knee, keep the toes tucked. Now, check in this front left pelvic point. That left glute is pushing into it, and you should feel a lot of strength in this left glute. So give it a little poke, a little tap. Make sure it's doing its job. Now, if it's gonna feel okay for you, I'm gonna push down into the feet and lift up into a crescent lunge. So notice we're not letting the pelvis tip here. This left glute is still wrapping down, it's still working a lot. That back knee can be a little bit bent. Now let's push into the right big toe mound, and we're gonna stand all the way up, pulling the left knee up toward your belly. So if you need to grab a hold of something there, you can find something to balance on. So push into that right foot, rise to stand. Now check in with that right glute. You can give that little feedback on the front pelvic point. Wrap it down and push it forward. Nice. One more breath there. And then step your left foot down. So we're about hips width apart there. Little hip flexion. So sit back into the hip creases. Rise to stand. Glutes push forward. Right leg comes out to the right a little. Step it down. Flex. Rise. Left leg out. So we're going to keep going with that here. And you can make this range really small. What we're trying to do is get this movement in the hip, keeping the pelvis pretty consolidated. And so once again, when we do this little kind of kick out to the side, targeting these outer hip muscles, which for a lot of us tend to be pretty weak because we don't do a lot of things kind of in this side to side plane. It's very much forward and back. All right, now this next time you sit back into the hips, we're gonna come all the way down, hands on floor blocks. Right foot will step back, lower the knee, keep the toes tucked. Check in with this front right pelvic point, this right glute now is doing a lot of the work. If it feels okay, push into your feet and come up for a crescent lunge. And notice how we haven't really changed the position of the pelvis. Tailbone is still lengthening. We're hugging the front into the back. Now push down into that left big toe mound, rising to stand, pulling the right knee in. And then check in with this left glute. Right, and you'll notice if the glute is not doing its job there, it's gonna be a lot harder to balance and you're gonna feel like you're just kind of sagging into that standing hip. Take one more breath. And step the right foot down. Fingers can go in the hip creases. Sit back. Rise up, left leg goes out. Sit back, rise up, right leg. Keep it going there. And when you're coming up to stand, you're bringing that leg out to the side. Feel like that standing hip, you're hugging it in to midline. And that's gonna make you feel less like you're just falling over toward that leg. Last one each side. All right, let's give that a little shake. And come down onto your back. Just gonna make myself a nice little pillow there. And let's have both feet on the floor. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. And then maybe this already feels like enough for you. You can stay right there or reach through and catch that left leg. And maybe just rock slightly over to the left side. Feeling that stretch in your right hip. And just switching sides there. Left ankle over right thigh. And the option to stay right there or reach through. Maybe just rocking a little bit over to the right. And then we'll come on out of that and just set yourself up in any comfortable position on your back. So your knees can be bent or your legs can be straight. And just notice your breath. I'm just feeling now this opportunity to not have to engage or work or think. And just let yourself be able to rest, knowing that that strength and that support is there for you when you need it. And together, let's take a deep, full breath in. And gently sigh it out. Let's do that one more time together. Deep breath in. And let it out. And just begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And as you're ready, making your way up to a seat. And just take a moment to notice the difference when we're able to strengthen and move and mobilize these massive joints and muscles around the hip. And just notice how it allows you to walk boldly, confidently, knowing that you are strong, capable, and supported. And that strength is something that you can always tap into whenever it's needed. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope you feel amazing, maybe a little sore. If you would like to be notified when new classes get uploaded. Please hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.